Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors. Get all your hound hunting needs at conkeys.com. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest fights to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game. Welcome back to another episode of Tree Talking Time. Christmas is almost here, and I just want to say Merry Christmas to everybody, and I just really want to say thank you for all the listeners. We are going to do a little giveaway this week. If you have not already seen this post on Facebook, head over to Facebook. There's a post. There's 6 trivia questions. The first 5 people to answer all 6 questions correctly will get a code to Joseph Krantz's first book, The Last Coon Hunter. The code for an audiobook, excuse me. So it's a great listen. I really enjoyed it. I had never read the book, so I listened to it just recently. Really enjoyed it. The guy that reads it does a great job as well. I think anybody that coon hunts will enjoy it. So the first 5 people to answer correctly those 6 questions correctly will get a code to that audiobook. But there is a grand prize winner, so anybody that answers those questions correctly this week will be entered into a drawing for the grand prize, which will be a sticker pack from all of the sponsors plus Tree Talking Time, and either your choice of a hat or a t-shirt. Be sure to check out the Facebook page, follow those rules, and look forward to hearing from you guys. Today's guest is Dan Pearce. Dan has been on the podcast before. We kind of just jumped into the conversation, really didn't do any intros, but Dan was on episode 27, Mountain Cur Cat Dogs, where we talked about how he hunts bobcats with his mountain curs here in Pennsylvania. But Dan is also a big-time squirrel hunter, and actually squirrel hunts more than he bobcat hunts, just because of the way our season is. But Dan and his buddy Jeff just got back from a pretty epic adventure where they went across the country for the Squirrel Grand Slam. So stay tuned. You just went on an epic adventure, and I just want to know about it.
Yeah. I got a good. It was a good trip.
I mean, how many people drive across the country to hunt squirrels?
Right. Well, you said a lot of the looks and comments that we got, when we were leaving and when we were out there, just it was pretty funny, really. But it's something different.
Oh yeah, squirrel dogs aren't really big on the West Coast, from what I understand.
No, and I mean even people back here, like, you're going where to go squirrel hunting?
Yeah, No, but I think it was pretty cool. So, maybe just start out with, what is a Squirrel Grand Slam? Because I don't even know what that is.
So, the Squirrel Grand Slam, which I don't take credit for any of this, or it's just something I read. It was actually an article in Field and Stream last year, I think. I believe the guy was a biologist. I should say, don't quote me on it, but he said that there's technically 8 different species of squirrels in the U.S. that are huntable.
Okay. And
then obviously there's multiple variations of those squirrels, fox squirrels and different color variations of gray squirrels and averts, but those don't count. It only counts as one,
Okay.
So, in Pennsylvania we have the gray squirrel. I guess they call it Eastern gray, the fox squirrel, and the red squirrel. But all the rest are basically West Coast. It's all I think in California there's the Douglas squirrel and the Western gray. In Arizona there is the Abert squirrel, the Arizona gray squirrel, and the Mexican fox squirrel.
Okay.
And they also have red squirrels there too, but we didn't need that down there. So I guess a little background on where this come from for us anyways was, a few years ago, we had started going to North Carolina after the fox squirrels down there.
Yeah.
And after we'd done it a couple of years, I was like, there's got to be other squirrels that we can hunt. So I got to looking at the Abert squirrel, and that was my focus the whole time. The Aberts and the Kaibob, which is Aberts, the North Rim of the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
And I said that those interested me. They're cool looking. I want to do this.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of laughed about it. Like, we're not going to drive 30 hours to go squirrel hunt.
And you've gotten some pretty cool looking squirrels in North Carolina too.
Yeah. They were great. I mean, I like going down there, but I think we did it 4 or 5 years, and it was just we were looking for something different to do.
Yeah.
But it just seemed out of reach. 30 hours to go squirrel hunt was just a lot it was intimidating, I guess. And
yeah.
So last year we read that article and we kind of chuckled about it. And my buddy Jeff and I, we talked about it, but we never really got serious. And he actually got serious this year. He's like, hey, I want to do this, and we're going to do California, and then we're going to go to Arizona, and we're going to try to get them all. Okay, and I still was just kind of hem-hawing about it, and it was probably like July or so. He pinned me down. He's like, I'm going to go buy a trailer. He's like, if we're going to do this, so you got to tell me now. So I basically told him I'd do it, and so we started trying to do some research, and we made some phone calls to people, and I messaged on Facebook, multiple people. And we got a little information, but nothing really solid. The trip to California, actually, Jeff had talked to somebody that he was going to go lion hunting with. It had bear hunted 10 years ago out there, or whenever, before they outlawed bear hunting with dogs in California.
Yeah.
He said, I know where there's squirrels, so he just told us a town. Well, that was all we ended up really getting. So, fortunately, like my work, we have an office in Reno, and I know some people out there, so we were able to go stay with them while we hunted California.
Okay.
And so we drove all the way out there, stayed with them, and we drive into California in the morning. And I told Jeff before, I don't want to spend a lot of time in California. My focus is still on the Averts squirrels. And I said, we'll try it. So the Western Gray, I figured for sure. And I honestly, I wanted to do this with dogs no matter what. I didn't want to do anything other than with the dogs. And Jeff has a dog, but he wasn't so dead set that that's how he had to do it. He just wanted to make sure he got the Grand Slam. So
yeah.
So I knew going to California that my dogs typically don't tree red squirrels here.
Okay.
And the Douglas squirrel is basically a red squirrel. So I knew that there was a good chance I probably wouldn't be able to do that with the dogs unless I got lucky.
Yeah.
So anyways, we drive to this town, which I don't think it mattered. I mean, it was Quincy, California is where we went, and I didn't know nothing about it. We get there, and it's pretty mountainous and kind of intimidating for somebody from Flatland in Pennsylvania. I know what my dogs are capable of, and they're capable of making me walk a long ways. So you get into that rugged country, it's a little bit unnerving to cut them loose up there, not knowing what the squirrel numbers are. They might have to go a long ways to find one. So, so we drive up this mountain in the morning, and it doesn't really look like squirrel country, what I would consider squirrel country. And we found a fairly flat spot on top and turned the dog loose. We just were going to turn one dog loose at a time and keep working our way out through the mountain there and try to find them. We made one tree on the first drop, and we couldn't find anything. So we made a loop, went back out, dropped Jeff's dog, and she went down over the side of the mountain and across the valley and got treed. So that was the start of it. And
Nice.
I can't say that anything could have went any better than it did the whole trip. Honestly, it was we got that first Western Gray, and then we turned Oneida loose, and she went like 600 or so, and she actually had 2 treed. It was a great start. I honestly didn't expect it to go that well.
Yeah, like you said, you drove 30 hours with 3 dogs. That I'm not saying you don't haul your dog some, but not usually, not that far.
Yeah. Well, and we didn't drive it straight through. We stopped a little bit, but from the time we left home till the time we got to Reno, it was 42 hours.
It's a long haul.
And for the dogs to just come out of the box and tree squirrels for us like that was just ecstatic. So we hunted around in the morning. We got our squirrels and went down to town a little bit and Jeff had talked to somebody there in town about the Douglas squirrel, and he said, "Oh, they're everywhere." You walk through the woods and they chirp at you, and we hadn't seen one yet, so we go back up in the mountains in the afternoon and find a spot. And against my interest, we went and just sat, and we split up in two different spots, and within 5 minutes he shot his Douglas squirrel. So I think when I was sitting with gray squirrels, so I reluctantly, I was like, the only way I'm going to get one is to sit. So we sat some, and then I ran dogs some, and we treated some more gray squirrels and had a good time there. But so the next day I was ready to go. So I got my gray. I'm not getting the Douglas. Let's go. And he talked me into sticking around, and we hunted one more day, and we tried for the Douglas, and it just didn't work out. Treat some more gray squirrels.
Now, the Western grays, are they similar size to the Eastern grays?
Actually, no, they're a fair amount larger. They'd be closer to probably a fox squirrel size here. They're. I honestly, I did a little research, but I never really looked that close at what they looked like. But yeah, they're actually a pretty big squirrel.
Gotcha.
So, and yeah, just like our other squirrels, tree good. They will timber out and they will fail if you get too close on a small tree. We found out, but there seemed to be, we didn't have a hard time finding them. We just had a hard time finding places to cut the dogs where it didn't make me sick to my stomach with the hills and stuff. So, but so we got 2 days out there, and we actually spent one more night in Reno, and we got up early the next morning and headed south. And for me, I've been to Colorado and Montana and stuff, but I'd never been beyond that. So I've seen a lot of stuff that I'm glad I got to see. It's amazing what's in the U.S. to look at.
Oh yeah.
So we drove all day down to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. I think it was Jacob Lake is where we ended up staying. There's a little inn there, and we got down there, and there's 6 inches of snow, crusty, and 20-mile-an-hour winds, and
great weather for squirrel hunting.
Yeah, I was like, if this was home, we wouldn't see nothing tomorrow. But the Kaibab squirrel, or that version of the Aberts is, that was number one on my list. So I was like, I'll stay here for 4 days if I have to. I'm getting one of these squirrels. Well, it was nice that, we could go out and actually see squirrel tracks in the snow and know that they're there. But it took us a little bit of effort. They weren't running everywhere, just I think because of the conditions and, melting snow. And I don't like trying to make excuses for dogs or anything, but over the years of coyote hunting and stuff, melting snow has always seems like it's the most difficult for dogs to function on.
Yeah.
It had warmed up to, upper 30s, and the snow was melting off, and the dogs were struggling a little bit. And we finally got into some squirrels, and the first one I knocked down, it was just, it was cooler than I guess I thought they were going to be.
Yeah. The
color on them with the rust down the middle of the back and the jet black on the belly and the big ear tufts. They're just and white tails, just a really, really cool looking squirrel.
They are crazy looking, that is for sure. And I had never seen one until I saw your picture. I was like, what in the world is that?
Right. So we ended up just spending 1 day there. We got our squirrels, and then, we stayed one more night at Jacob Lake, and in the morning we got up and we drove around the Grand Canyon, down through Flagstaff, and got back into National Forest. And it was like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. We were cutting loose again after the Abert squirrel. And we got right into them. Dogs were making trees, some dens and stuff. And then we did get a couple knocked down there. So we loaded the dogs up and headed further south. We dropped a couple more times looking for Abert squirrels and treat a few more. We ended up staying, I think, that night in Payson, Arizona. And this was the one that stumped me a little bit, was the Arizona gray squirrel. And I didn't do as much research as I probably should have on it.
Okay.
So you get on Wikipedia and look, but nobody really had. I didn't really get any information from anybody. Everything I could read is that they kind of stuck to the drainages and stuff. They weren't up in the higher elevations. So we tried some drainages, and actually Jeff ended up getting one there the first morning. It was the only one we've seen, and we hunted hard. I don't know how many miles we put on the dogs and the truck and just finding new drainages to hunt, but we never treated another one all day. So back to Payson, stayed the night, looked at the maps, decided that we were going to try a different area. And we got up in this mountain range, and there were some towns up in there, and we were kind of looking for the right habitat. It seemed like every time we found the right habitat, it was close to town and private land, so we couldn't hunt it.
Conkey's Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkey's motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkey's carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well.
Couldn't hunt it. We drove, till 10 or 10:30 in the morning without dropping the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally just got frustrated. I was like, I'm turning my dog loose down in this. It didn't look like anything you would ever find a squirrel in. We were up on top of the mountain. It was kind of a little drainage type thing with little short trees. But I said, I'm not just going to haul them around all day. Let's go.
Yeah.
And Oneida went 200 yards from the truck and treed, and she had 3 gray squirrels in one tree.
Nice.
So I was like, wow, that was luck. So we made sure we got our gray, and then we ended up going on out the mountain range and dropping in another nice little drainage, and Hawk treed a real nice big male for me, and I knocked it out. So
very cool.
So yeah, it was, like I said, everything just kind of fell together. I honestly, to start out the whole trip, I did not figure that we could do everything in 1 day or 2 days and just keep on moving through. Mm-hmm. I had a plan to do it in 2 weeks, but I thought that was kind of foolish. I was like, there's no way, it'll take 2.5. But we'll see what happens. So we got our gray. I think we stayed the night there again and got up the next morning. No, we didn't. We left Payson that night. That's right.
Okay.
And we drove down to the last one, and that was the one that everybody, we had read and heard people talk, and I looked in. It was going to be the toughest. That was the Mexican fox squirrel.
Okay.
And I figured, well, we're running ahead of schedule, so we have some time to hunt down there. But I actually I know a guy that has done this long before we did it. He's an older fella, a friend. I haven't talked to him for years. We comp hunted together a few times, but he had been out there, and I think he actually got all the squirrels with the dogs.
Okay.
But I finally had broke down. I probably should have called him before. He might have saved us a lot of effort throughout the whole thing, and hunting. There's probably easier terrain to hunt than what we did, I'm sure, at least in California for sure.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, I called him and I talked to him, and he actually told me he was out there. He said, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago he went out and did it. And he told me where there was a drainage that's where he got his squirrel. And he said he hunted 2 days hard and seen 2 squirrels. I was like, oh boy, that's going to be rough.
Is that what makes them hard to, you said, the Mexican fox squirrel was, you'd read it was going to be hard, but it's right. Just low population density, or
low population density and really rugged country. I mean,
okay.
If you catch them down in the drainages, you're good. But the mountaintops and stuff out there, it's rugged. It's
yeah.
I think that's really the only place that they live. So in the U.S.,
mm-hmm.
that you're kind of tied to it. So we actually we had driven to Tucson the night before and stayed there, and then figured we'd drive in and get a hotel room and then head up in the afternoon just to at least get an idea of what we were looking at to hunt.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We didn't get there. We were driving up into the drainage at like 11:30, and we're driving off the road, and there's a fox squirrel sitting in the middle of the road. I'm like, huh. So it took off, and we kind of drove. Well, I really just wanted to do it, do it right, drop the dogs. And I guess I could do long story short. We ended up seeing 8 squirrels before the end of the day.
Wow.
Just whether I think part of it was the mountaintops had all burned off a lot of the stuff, so the squirrels may have moved down into the drainages more. It's just lucky for us, we did drive up around on the mountaintop and kind of looked around, but there was no need to cut dogs up there. We had been able to find them down in the bottom. So, yeah, I mean, the dogs did great. We didn't really have to go that far. It was nice flat bottom.
Nice.
Lots of game there. We saw lots of deer and stuff down in the bottom, but the dogs did a nice job. So we did it all in it was 10 days.
Okay.
We were finished. We had 7 days of hunting. Jeff had got what he needed for the Grand Slam, and I guess I was a squirrel shy.
Hey, that's still pretty good.
Yeah, right. And I ended up like 6,400 miles on my truck. We took 2 days to get home, so it was all total from the time we left till the time we got back. It was 12 days.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
But yeah, I don't know that I don't know that I'd ever make that trip again. That's a lot, and it's hard on the dogs. You haul them around and you got to get them out, and it's just it was a lot. So
you didn't look for some cat tracks while you were out there?
I did see. Well, we only had snow there for a couple of days, but yeah, I seen some cat tracks, and I briefly thought about it, but. My wife was like, "Oh, you going to the Grand Canyon?" And honestly, we drove around the Grand Canyon. I never went and seen it. We had a mission, and I was focused on getting what we were trying to get, and I guess I didn't veer from that mission the whole time.
I think if I saw some cat tracks, I would have veered off of that mission.
Yeah, we had a real big Tom Bobcat track there the one day that I was like, man. I wouldn't mind turning loose on that, but it wasn't a real good track. So who knows? We might. And with the blowing snow and stuff, everything even the squirrel tracks were getting blowed shut that day. 20-mile-an-hour winds. So I don't know how it would have panned out, but maybe someday I be back out there and turn loose on some cats. I actually talked to a fellow in Utah that I may try to get together with next year. We'll see.
There you go.
So always looking for something different to do and another adventure with dogs.
Well, your dogs are pretty experienced bobcat dogs. So, I mean, I would say you could probably take them out there, and you could probably tree a line out there or some bobcats.
Probably. I guess that's something that that's another thing I've talked about for years is possibly going out trying to tree a line with my own dogs, and I've just never pulled the trigger on it. I guess I need somebody to twist my arm a little bit. So, but yeah, the squirrel hunt was really a big success. And like I said, I guess I don't regret not being able to get to Douglas because I really just wanted to do the whole thing with the dogs.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't going to work, then I got what I was after.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly can turn my dogs loose around here and just make me pull my hair out sometimes and do silly stuff. But that whole trip, they just acted like they knew what they were doing. I didn't have to worry. I did. I know Hawk there the one day I turned him loose. It was the first day we were trying to look for the Arizona gray, and he went straight up about a 400-foot ridge that was hands and knees to climb to the top.
Oh, geez.
And he got treed up on top of it. And it was funny because the Garmin said like 170 yards, and I couldn't even hear him. He was clear up on the flat top of it.
Yep.
And climbed all the way up there to find a den tree. So, but yeah, like I said, I don't know that it could have went any better, and I got a bunch of squirrels for the wall now. So
yeah. In total, how many squirrels did you guys tree over the trip? Do you know?
Wow. I don't know that for sure. Probably between 20 and 30 squirrels, I would say, on the trip. I think that's pretty fair.
Cool.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, we got into squirrels everywhere we went, and without having much, guidance or anything, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Such a vast, I mean, everywhere we hunted was just huge, vast wilderness areas. So,
oh yeah.
it can be hard, even in a state like Pennsylvania, to be, confident, especially like national forest, to be turning loose on squirrels all the time.
Yep.
So I don't know, just luck maybe, but it worked out.
Do you have any advice for somebody that wants to go for a Squirrel Grand Slam with dogs?
Yeah, I mean, make sure you're in shape. It's a pretty rugged country. I mean, all of it, Arizona and California, at least where we hunted, you definitely want to be able to get to the dogs. But it's doable. I mean, we proved that. We did it in 7 days, or 7 days of hunting. I wouldn't be afraid to tear into it again, just knowing what I know now. But I guess make sure you read your regulations and stuff. Of course, California's lead free, and make sure you follow the rules. But price wise, you're talking. We bought a 2-day small game license in California. I can't remember. It was like $58, I think.
Okay.
And then Arizona was $20 a day. You can buy up to 7 days or whatever if you want. So it's pretty cheap to buy licenses for all of it.
Yeah.
And then just an abundance of public land to hunt. There's no real issues of finding places to hunt. That when we were in Arizona, it was during elk season, so we were dodging elk hunters a fair amount there.
Okay.
I guess mid Arizona, we didn't see anybody down south, and in the north rim of the Grand Canyon, we've seen some mule deer hunters and stuff. But other than that, California, I don't think we ever seen another person on the mountain.
Did any of those hunters ask you what you were doing?
Yeah, we actually were having lunch one day, and there was a couple guys in there that were mule deer hunting, and they asked if we were mule deer hunting, and we told them what they were doing, and they're like, "What?" Yeah, they laughed, but
that's funny.
But then they wanted to know more.
Yeah,
they were interested. They're like, "Really?" So it's fun to be in that position. I think I kind of like it when somebody's like, "You really do that?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's different, and I have always been like that. I've always wanted to do something different than everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, squirrel dogs definitely aren't a West Coast thing.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah. Like I said, it's definitely doable. You just kind of. Our planning wasn't the best, but it worked. So. I know that the fellow that I talked to about the Mexican fox squirrel, he had talked to biologists, which probably would have been the smart thing to do, to call some of these states and talk to biologists and get an idea on stuff. But we sometimes just like to wing it. So,
if you had it to do over again, is there anything you would change or would have done differently?
I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, you almost always have some error or something on a trip that just, you're like, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But this may have been the best trip most successful trip, and everything just went right the whole time. I really don't have anything to, possibly if we could have done a little more research and found some easier ground, but in the end, we really didn't get in any trouble. The squirrels were there, and dogs didn't have to go a mile to find them. So
yeah,
I really don't, I can't even say that, we didn't kill ourselves to do it.
Mm-hmm. Good deal. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Dan.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me. It was neat. It was a neat trip, and I know that there was a lot of interest in it.
Yeah, I know. Like, you're posting updates, and everyone's like, reading them, and a couple people requested this podcast.
I've seen. So, but yeah, like I said, if it's doable, it's not out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed intimidating, and I just didn't know if it was possible. But it's a lot of fun.
That's great.
And my taxidermy bill is going to be kind of ridiculous, I think.
How many of those squirrels are you getting mounted?
I'm going to get all 5 of the. Well, I'm getting a combination of some freeze drying and some mounts done, but I'm going to get all 5 of the ones that I got mounted, and then I got a couple of several of them that I'm going to. Actually, there's a local guy here at Tannery that I've been using, but he did a squirrel rug for me on a North Carolina squirrel a couple years ago. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, and I think it's fantastic. So I'm going to get a couple made into rugs too. So.
That's awesome. Be interested to see that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm sure once I get them done, I'll post some pictures of them. But
Very cool. Well, I appreciate it, Dan.
Yep. I appreciate you having me on again, Ben.
So there you have it, folks. Drive across the country and get you a Squirrel Grand Slam for all you diehard squirrel hunters out there. So, before I let you go, I just want to say Merry Christmas, and also check out the sponsors. I know it's a little late to be getting Christmas presents, but you get a little spending money for Christmas. You know where to go: Conkeys, W, Full Cry, and TreeTalking.com. So get you some podcast merch and support those sponsors. Thank you very much. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.